Zdravo, and many thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to take part in this important conference. In this short communication, I would like to present how the ecumenists have changed the ecclesiology and sacramental theology of the Church in order to attain their purposes of a false union with the heretics. In the 1920s, the new uncanonically elected Patriarch of Constantinople, Meletius Metaxakis, published a series of documents, which soon served as the basis of a new ecumenistic tendency, which from that time onwards has been increasingly present within the Patriarchate. The first document is an encyclical which expresses sorrow for the division of the Church and exhorted all the Orthodox to strive in order to achieve the desired unity. The second, officially recognized as fully valid the ordinations, that is, the episcopacy and the priesthood of Anglicans, a thing which even the Latins had not done, having officially rejected it in the 19th century. The third, considering a scandal the lack of unity with the other churches in the celebration of the Christian feasts, introduced the so-called new calendar, that is the Gregorian calendar invented by the Pope in the life of the churches who followed the path of the Patriarchy. All these documents were surely motivated by the political ambition of a unity between Constantinople and the Anglicans, in order to obtain political support from the British Empire in the troubled years of the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of the Lycist Turkish nationalism against the Greek Patriarchy. But nevertheless, these documents are a precious testimony of how the conception of the Church has been radically changed in the minds of the ecumenists, so that they consider the Church to be divided. They consider the existence of other churches. All this can stand along with what we confess in the Creed, professing one Church. What is the Church for the Orthodox theology? The Church is the column and the fundament of the truth, the same body of our Lord Jesus Christ, a divino-human organism in which we are incorporated through the baptism, and in which, participating of the body of God-man Christ, we can deify ourselves. Being the body of the Lord, who is the same truth as is written in the Gospel, consequentially, all who do not follow the truth, even if they call themselves Christians, are not in the Church, as the many who claim Lord, Lord, but will not have part in the heavenly kingdom according to the gospel. In the parable of the murderous vine workers, the master of the vineyard, that is our Lord Christ, poses a hedge around it, which the Holy Fathers interpreted as the borders of the church. Outside these borders, there is no church, there is no truth, there is no grace, there is not even Christians, because, as the great father of the second century Saint Justin says, the heretics have no right to be called Christians. So the church is not divided, cannot be divided as the ecumenist means, since the other churches who are outside are not even part of the church. But why the ecumenists recognize people outside the church as part of it? Because they recognize, as we have seen for the Anglican priesthood, the existence of sacraments, and especially of baptism, outside the church. How is it possible? For the Orthodox theology, sacraments are a mysterious form of participation of the man in the uncreated grace of the Holy Trinity. This participation can obviously be attained only through the Church, beginning from the baptism, which must be performed in spirit and truth, and so cannot be performed outside the Church, outside of the truth. The existence of actual grace outside the borders of the Church has been consistently refused by all the Holy Fathers. For consequence, even the validity of any sacrament cannot be claimed outside the Church, and for this reason, the 46th canon of the Apostles claims that it is not possible to recognize the baptism of the heretics, a rule which was further confirmed by all the Holy Fathers, and as Saint Cyprian of Carthage says, one is the baptism, and this is found only in the one Catholic Church. If since antiquity some groups of heretics were eventually accepted in the Church without a formal baptism, this has never meant a recognition of a heretical baptism, but was the application of the Church principle of economy. Yet St. Basil and the Sixth Ecumenical Council explained that the Church can make use of this principle of economy to favor the coming of the heretics to the salvation, to the Church. According to the economical theory, to use the definition of Saint Hieromartyr Hilarion Troitsky, if a heretic is received in the Church with the rites other than the baptism, that is chrismation, confession, and so on, that does not mean that he had yet a valid baptism that is recognized the heretical baptism, but that the same grace of the Orthodox baptism is given to him in a different form, because the baptism, as all the sacraments, serves to the Church, and on the contrary, so he still receives a baptism in another form. At the same time, the Church can choose to apply the measure of akrivia, that is exactness, severity, requiring a complete formal baptism. This is the case of monophysites, which the Sixth Ecumenical Council allowed for economy to not be formally baptized, but later, since the 12th century onward, has been consistently baptized in the Georgian Church and even in the other Orthodox churches. Or is the case of the Latins, which still Saint Mark of Ephesus allowed to be only chrismated for sake of the economy. But later, local councils, as the Council of Moscow in 1620, and finally the All Orthodox Council of 1755, linking to a more ancient practice, yet since in 1055 Cardinal Humbert mentioned the rebaptism of Latins, and a later Byzantine anonymous pamphlet called On the Errors of the Franks exposes the incorrectness of Latin baptism. So that council, the Council of 1755, which was an all-Orthodox council, so dogmatically binding for the Orthodox, required undoubtedly the baptism for the Latins coming to the Orthodoxy. All these matters are clearly espoused by Saint Nicodemus the Agorite in his Pedalion, in the comment of the relative canons. Meanwhile, the ecumenists, since the 1920s, applied the practice of not baptizing Latins, even Protestants, but they do not speak more of economy, as did the previous Orthodox fathers, but they recognize the heretical baptism, thinking that the chrismation can eventually reactivate the grace in a yet received baptism. As we have seen, this has nothing to do with Orthodox theology of sacraments. It mostly depends on the Latin conception of sacraments. For the scholastic, indeed, the sacraments are a sort of magic, a formula accompanied by a matter, which are correctly executed, bind God, like the vows of the old pagans, to produce relative graces, which in the Latin theology is creative things and not the uncreated energy of the Holy Trinity. So, as long as the Trinitarian formula and the matter, the water, is present, for the Latins, each baptism, even if performed by a Muslim, is fully valid, even outside the Catholic Church, producing eventually an immediate apostate, but still a valid baptized Catholic. This is a total nonsense, not only for Orthodox conception, but even for common sense. But this Latin theology has been unfortunately adopted by ecumenists, which on the basis of this new sacramentology have created a new ecclesiology, the baptismal theology, according to which all denominations of Christian denomination who practice baptism are actually in some degree participating of the church, and their baptism is to be recognized fully valid and cannot be repeated. So we have seen how the ecumenists, while using forms existing in the church history, have totally distorted the theological conception of them, creating a new ecclesiology and a new sacramentology, extraneous to the Orthodox phronema, in order to achieve a new false union with heretics. This is the reason for which we have to fight this innovation and their promoters, and all the changements in the orthopraxis that have brought forth from the calendar onwards, in order to defend our church from all her enemies, which in all the century tried to destroy the shape of salvation, but our Lord has promised that they shall not prevail. Amen.